Good morning. So good to talk to you, to see you all today. I wanted to cover the topic of stimming and other struggles that we have with the differences in our autistic versus non-autistic people that we love. And the first thought that when I was thinking about doing this, I wanted you to know that this is a topic that comes up frequently, that when I searched just on one of the autism parenting pages that I love, and I just searched on the word stimming, there were, I don't know, it felt like at least 100 entries about concerns about stimming and, just thinking about what's the best way to think about it, and many, many, many comments. So this is a topic that comes up often with our young adults. And I just wanted to see if we could figure out a way to think about it so that it would help us as moms show up the way we want to show up. So one of the thoughts that I have is that it was pretty much unanimous, especially from the autistic individuals on that page, that they just want to keep stimming. And when I went and did more research on it, it makes perfect sense why our autistic young adults enjoy the process of stimming. And we find them doing it a lot when things are triggered or more tense, or they're trying to wind down from their day. And some of the comments that our parents have about it are, I just can't deal with all this. It just seems like a lot. There's just a lot going on, that I have so many thoughts about this. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? It's kind of embarrassing in some ways when the public stimming occurs, that causes other people to notice. And, am I the only one that's struggling with how should I think about stimming and whether or not it's good or bad or whatever? And of course, once you've gone to any of those autism parenting pages, you'll see there's just a lot of people saying, no, you are clearly not the only one that is struggling with how to think about stimming and those other, autism characteristics that make our kids, make us have to come up with strategies that work specifically for the challenges that we face, that they're not the typical ones. So thanks to one of the people that I've talked to in one of those pages, I was referred to Bill Masson's series on the autism discussion page. It's a 3-book series. I just bought them all because I bought the first one, this one, on the core challenges of autism, and cannot recommend it highly enough. Bill just takes the concepts of what's happening in an autistic brain and makes them understandable for those of us who are not autistic. It really, or maybe those of us who could be autistic anyway, it really helps me better understand what's going on neurologically. And so it makes perfect sense. And once things make perfect sense for me, it's easier for me to get to peace on that. So I highly recommend for sure this book, and you may want to consider buying the other two. It turns out that he has a whole page on Facebook where he's posted a lot of these topics, most of the topics. And then if you go to the photos section of that page, you'll see a lot of, I'm blanking, a lot of slides on what he has presented on these topics in various places, the fellow's a psychologist. I did contact him at the request of one of the people that talked to me and gave me suggestions about who I should interview, what authors I should interview. And unfortunately, he is getting toward retirement now and didn't agree to do, is trying to cut back, and totally understandable. So I'm not able to have him on, but I will be writing a playbook on each of the 3 books that he has published, that in the art of adulting, and creating quick videos, which can also be listened to on our private podcast page, so that, the essence of what Bill is telling us, from my perspective, is all in one nugget that you can easily swallow as the parent of a autistic young adult. So that's my goal, is to try and take as much information as I can about autism so that we better understand what's going on with our kids, so that we can then connect better with them, and then we can practice what works for them. And those 3 steps are from Barb Avila's Seeing Autism book. I think she's worked with autistic people for over 30 years. So she really knows how to synthesize all the information out there, as she's done it herself over the last 3 decades. And I believe that Bill's series of books is a wonderful resource for those of us who are parenting autistic young adults and autistic adults. The biggest thing that Bill suggests, and that almost every autism author that I've read suggests, is that we do the best we can to slow the world down for our kids. And of course that helps, because the slower things are, the more we can deliberately think through what's going on and figure out what works for us. I'm here to suggest that we parents need to do the same thing. We really need to slow down our brains. It's just offering that ticker tape of thoughts. Apparently, the research suggests that it's some 60,000 a day. It's just offering us all those thoughts because it wants to keep us alive. It wants to keep us conserving our energy, and it wants to keep us belonging to a tribe, because we're more likely to survive when we have people around us helping us out. And so often, and unfortunately, 80% of our thoughts, just unsupervised, are negative. 98% of them are the same as the day before. So that's why we get stuck, because our brain notices what's going wrong. And so it's really important for us to slow things down. My favorite way to slow things down, particularly around, these special challenges, these special nuances of being on the autism spectrum that we non-autistic people, or the non-autistic world, sees as unusual, is that we really do need to record our thoughts. When we take the time to do a brain dump of the thoughts that are going on, it somehow releases the burden. I mean, I can even feel it in my shoulders when I do it. It releases the burden of all of those thoughts when we can look at them on a piece of paper, or, in our notes app, or wherever else it is that we prefer, because I do prefer using electronic recording. I can type faster than I can write. So, and then you can even, do the speech to text option if you prefer. So there's ways to get the thoughts out of our heads and recorded someplace so that we can look at them. And that's when we want to really notice, what those thoughts are creating inside. And, this emoji, I'm sorry, it's a little bit annoying to watch it, but just watch how, the thought, that the smile to the frown, it's because, our thoughts do produce a range of emotions in us. And that is what I'm going to advocate. I'm going to advocate that we notice the thoughts, and then notice the emotions that they create, and notice how we try to classify those into good emotions and bad emotions. And so for both our autistic young adults and ourselves, I think it's really important that we take time to notice that we have a whole range of human emotions, and they're all okay. That if we embrace all of those emotions, if we allow ourselves to feel them in our bodies, recognize that they're created by thoughts, and somehow our body turns those into chemicals, which turn into vibrations in our system, that all of our emotions are useful in some way or another. When you look at that yin yang symbol, and I probably should have added that to this presentation today, that graphic has survived many, many years, centuries, because it's real. We have this whole range of emotions and things that happen. It's just, part of the human experience. And so when we look at so many of the wisdom teaching from all of the religions and from the recent research of psychologists, that the bottom line is that accepting those thoughts and emotions is what's really important, that we take it all in, and that we suspend our judgment on whether or not those things are good or bad. Instead, which is what our brain is automatically offering us, and instead say they are all useful. All of my emotions are useful. One thing, though, that I do want to highlight is the concept of clean versus dirty pain. So, let's say something does happen. We've all probably experienced the death of a pet, a beloved, family member, a pet. And when that pet dies, we want to feel the sadness. I mean, in a lot of ways, we are honoring the pet that died through our sadness. I mean, some may put that in the bucket of, not so fun, not very uncomfortable, that sadness, but we want to feel that sadness. So that's kind of a clean pain, and we want to give ourselves time to feel that clean pain. So let's suggest that perhaps being the parent of an autistic young adult has its own struggles, and there are times when we wish things were different. Well, yeah, if we could wave a magic wand and we could change the neurology that our kids inherited in the genetic lottery, we might, as parents, decide that it would be a good idea if we could wave that magic wand and rewire some of the connections in their brains so that maybe they were stronger, or maybe they weren't so, so sensory, easy for their senses to get overloaded. We would do that probably. I mean, we would think a lot about doing that. But maybe wishing things were different is denying what's real in that acceptance piece. So that dirty pain, the concept of the dirty pain is more of the stories that we tell ourselves, like, this just isn't fair. It shouldn't be happening. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. That's when the dirty pain kind of concepts come up, the dirty pain emotions, where we start spinning in our, we just really do. We get into that spin cycle where we keep thinking about how unfair it is and how, if it were only different, things would be better. And it's really important that we recognize that if it were only different, things would be better, is a story that we've constructed in our head that may or may not be better, in fact. And that many autistic people who have done some wonderful writing, especially lately, suggest that there are such advantages to being autistic that they wouldn't want to be any other way. And when we consider our children, of course, we love them down to their toenails, and we don't want anything of them to change. So, yeah, maybe it would be easier, but what we're yearning for is a made-up version of reality. And that most of the wisdom teachings and a lot of the recent psychological research suggests that we're better off actually accepting what's going on and then deciding what the next thing is to do. So I hope I found this concept of clean versus dirty pain really helps me look at my thoughts and decide, which one of these thoughts is one that I want to choose to practice more often, and which are the thoughts that I want to choose to practice less often and decondition my brain for offering them for me. So on the topic of stimming, the research suggests that it's one of the coping skills, one of the most effective coping skills for our autistic people, the autistic people that we love, and that the best thing for us to do is to support it. And then, of course, continue to expand their options, try to, see what we can do to teach and help them get more coping skills that are more automatic, that can give them a whole range of options, so that if they're in public, they can regulate themselves one way, and if they're in private, perhaps maybe some of the stimming things that are really soothing to them can be done in a place that works best for them. So those are my thoughts on stimming and how we can think about it, and how we need to take the time to actually record our thoughts and look at them and decide if they're producing what we want. If you like what I have to say here and you'd like more, please come visit me at lindsay-davison.com/welcome. You can register there for a free webinar on what works, how to systemize self-reliance with your young adult. It's completely free. It's my best thinking of the decades of parenting autistic young adults, and in over 1,000 conversations with autistic young adults and their families, coaching them to implement the system that I invented, that I think really breaks things down, slows down the world, and helps our kids create a life they love that works. And it helps us as well. Bye for now.